We have some wonderful flutists and a piccolo doing some compositions that have been recently performed for us, and I'm just so excited to hear a portion of this concert, and I'm also just really grateful to you all for being here. We'll be starting in a moment, but before we do, I'd like you to make sure you silence all electronic devices, and I'd like to welcome to the stage our coordinator for this event, Leanna Keith.
Everybody, thank you so much for being here. We're so excited for our annual Premieres Concert, which features the works of the compositions that we commissioned this year for our varying competitions, in this case, young artist, high school soloist, and piccolo artist competitions. Today's program is going to be relatively brief. However, after the premieres are finished, we are going to have a Q&A afterwards with the composers, so I highly suggest that you stick around, and you'll hear me talk some more, so I'm going to stop talking. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first piece, which is rap by Jean Ahn. Please welcome to the stage our performer, Elizabeth McNutt. again for all of our amazing players. We're going to just take a couple of seconds to reset the stage a little bit. I just need to bring some chairs up so that we're not just standing here awkwardly talking into a microphone. And then we will continue with the Q&A. Hang on just a sec. Actually say the name of any of our composers except for Jean. So just to reiterate, our piccolo solo piece was written by the wonderful Lisa Bost. And then our young artist piece was written by Shawn Okpebholo. So I've just got a couple of questions for each of you, and then afterwards I'd love to open it up to all of you. I'm sure you might have questions about all of the miraculous sounds that you heard. So I'm going to start with Shawn. Considering that in this work you call Charles Ives both a muse and a mischievous partner, what does Ives' music mean to you? And I'm going to hand you this mic.
Oh, okay. Well, it's funny. This is like clockwork. Pretty much almost every concert, premiere, or whatnot, someone will say, your music reminds me of Ives. Now, I don't think it sounds like Charles Ives, but the character of Charles Ives, in the sense that he's a kind of a postmodern composer, even though he lived before the modernist era, so he was the pre-postmodern composer, and where he would take a lot of different styles and elements, and he would tell stories through his music and new musical quotations. And I mean, this was a silly song called "The Sideshow," and he kind of, creates a world. I will say this is my third flute piece. And it's important to note that all of my flute pieces are based on art forms. My first flute piece was called on a poem by Miho Nonaka, Harvard Square. My second flute piece was called on a painting by Henry Osawa Tanner, The Thankful Poor. So when I was commissioned to do this piece, I said, let's make it on a tune, another art form. And I said, who do I want to try to tackle? And I said, Charles Ives. And so it was a simple melody, which you heard at the middle, in the complete form with lots of theatrics. And I was like, well, what can I do with that? And so I try to, embody the spirit of Charles Ives with my own, musical voice. And so that's how that came about.
Okay, so speaking of that middle section, because I have a peek behind the curtain, I know that in that middle section you've included the lyrics from the original tune. Because the flutist is unable to sing words while also singing into a flute and playing the flute at the same time, what was the purpose in leaving the lyrics in the score?
Yeah, that is so important. Every piece that I write is about something or response to something or inspired by something. I'm not a composer that can just write music. I'm jealous of those composers, but I'm not that. And so I fully believe if there's text involved somehow, whether it's in an abstract way or whether it's like you're actually singing the text, that the performer needs to know what the text is, okay? I didn't, Lina just brilliantly performed this piece her way. And someone asked, did you write in like the theatrics or the character? No. She looked at the text and she embodied, her performance based on that. And so I thought it was very important to know, it's not enough just to write the melody. That's just a tune. What is the text trying to say? And I think, I guess what I'm trying to say is, a really great performer would take the text, okay, and start with that before they learn one single note of the piece, and that will help elevate the work.
Great advice. I love making an emphasis on the text of the composition, because I think a lot of times flutists, I'm guilty, will look at a score and be like, I'm gonna learn all these notes first, and then I'll figure out what the words mean, and that's really just not a great way of presenting at a score. So, very, very cool. So, Jean, since we were talking about a muse, for your piece, you stated that in your composition notes, what excites me about rap is an impulsive drive, the way the lyrics create tension as the performer pushes breath to its limits. So similar to Shawn's piece, did you have a mischievous muse rapper in mind when writing your piece?
Okay, to be honest, I was trying to connect with young people as an old person. So I don't know any rapper. I don't know a single rapper. There's no muse. But when I first got the, sorry guys, I disappointed you.
No.
But when I first heard that I'm writing for high schoolers, I was like, I don't know, it's just like rap. It just came into my mind. So I started checking out, and most of the people I selected and put in my, I had a playlist, a bunch of rappers, and those are not famous rappers at all. Yeah, being a composer, I'm always inclined to like some people that are not famous. Yeah, indie rappers, right? So I had a bunch of collection in there, and I was keep listening to it, and other people, wow, Jean, I didn't know that you listened to rap. And it was really studying, seriously listening to it. But I don't have a single person as a muse, but I just liked that drive, that's something that I don't have as a classical composer, and so that's something I admire of people who can break through and push through the limits and that kind of thing.
Yeah, lovely. So speaking through, pushing through the limits, a theme in your piece I found is definitely breathlessness. Just through both the extended techniques and the tempo. So how does the physicality of the instrument influence your composition?
I'm really thankful that you're asking that question, because I actually grew up in Korea in a strict environment. When I learned composition, it was mostly just hand and paper back then, and everything was really square. And I didn't really think about physicality for a very, very long time. So during my academic years, all the way to PhD, to be honest, I wasn't really thinking about physicality. I was my notes, my rhythms are so important. I was imposing my idea. Do this to the performer, it turns out bad, of course, because I'm not thinking about the physicality, and then I'll blame them, and I didn't have a good relationship with the performers and that kind of thing. But after graduating, I slowly got to realize how much physicality is so important, and I also have an ensemble of my own, so that's how I know. I learned a lot through turning pages. I'm still not a performer. I play the piano, but piano's not very good for learning physicality because you get the sound right away. So anyway, so through that I learned so much. So when I had my first flute piece in 2014, it's called Toys. It's for flute and piano, and I actually rented a flute and I had flute lesson. But being a novice, I'm producing the sound that probably your teachers say don't do it, right? But I had so much fun with breath, different kind of breath. There were so many, why do flutists all play so pretty? See, there's so many different sounds I can make with different percentage of breath. So that's how I got those sounds.
That's beautiful, thank you. So Lisa, I know that you wrote this piece in close talks with our premiere performer, Kay Fink. And so as a flutist who's also a composer, what changed about your compositional process for this piece as opposed to something that you might write for yourself?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. And when I started out as a composer, my first few pieces were for me, and granted they've been played by a lot of other people now, but it's been a lot of years now that every time I've written a piece, it's been because of some requests, some commissions, some something. So I've been writing with other people in mind, and I think sometimes there's a very practical thing that drives that. Like one time I was commissioned specifically will you write a piece that could be someone's first introduction to extended techniques and various contemporary performance practices? But for something like this, for the Piccolo Artist Competition, of course there's sort of no boundaries. We've got these phenomenal competitors, I see several of you here, and you want to be able to challenge them in different ways, musically and artistically, and in so many ways it really is just about getting to write what you want to write and what you're going for, right? So in ways, in this particular case, I don't think it changed too much. And it's always also so incredibly rewarding. I mean, I have to say, as soon as I got the call to write this, I had this in my head of my dream would be if Kay Fink can perform the official premiere. So I'm very thankful for that, and to get to send her some drafts as it was nearing completion, get that feedback, because even though I'm a flutist and I had both of my piccolos out and I was at the piano as well and whatnot, it's really interesting to get to that perspective of someone else, get out of yourself in the piece.
I feel like it was a bit of a selfish question since I have written a piece for you, and so there was a little bit of a oh yeah, I wonder if that's a similar thought.
Yeah, we got a great flutist composer over here.
Thank you. So one more question for you. So in your notes, the title, Inwell, you said it means to exist as an inner activating spirit, force, or principle. So did this title come to you first, or did you come to it afterwards?
After. Throughout my pieces, I don't know what y'all have found, but sometimes the title's there first, sometimes it stumbles in at the midway point, and sometimes at the end you're trying to find it. Right? This one, there were a couple other things this piece was almost named. I actually just went back through my sketches recently to kind of remind myself. And I just knew I didn't quite have the right title, and I don't know what y'all do, but I have one of the really good big full thesauruses at home, that you really have to know how to use because the index is half of it.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, but I was just digging and digging and digging and found my way there. So I was glad for that because it fit in the end, but it was really finding my way.
Yeah, finding the title is, I think, a struggle for all of us. So, love to hear it. Does anyone have any questions about any of these pieces? I'd love to invite you to come up because we are live streaming it. I would prefer if you can talk into the mic so that we can capture it on the video. But any questions? Yeah. And then Mary, I'm gonna get to you. Come on. Talk right into that mic.
Thanks so much. First of all, I think we should give all of our composers and all of our performers just an incredible round of applause. What amazing pieces. What an incredible gift to all of us. And I thought your comments were very illuminating, what we just heard. But something that occurred to me as I was listening, what I hear in the pieces is so brilliantly done, and ostinato, gestures, textures, very sensitive use of silence and the insertion of silence into gestures, trajectories that connect to something much deeper. So what I'd like to do is ask each of you to make a comment about where the music comes from in terms of your inner life and your spiritual direction as a composer. I'd love to hear that from each of you.
Thank you so much. If you want to sit down.
You know, every composer, they do things differently, and I tell my students that just because I do something one way, or these fine composers do something, doesn't mean you have to do it that way. But composing to me is a spiritual practice. I'm a person of faith, and while most of my music is not sacred, I consider my music sacred in a way because there's a higher power that's helping me write, you know, and that's how I have to approach my music, because I just feel like being creative on demand to me is an impossible thing to think about, and so I rely on this, you know, something, you know, helping me, you know, I'm create things. Yes, I can tell you about the technical things. I start with the melody. Start with form. Actually, I always start with form, you know, and then melody and the motive and harmony, rhythm. I can talk about all that as a technical aspect of it, but when it comes down to it, I consider it a very spiritual practice.
I remember I was actually I emailed Leanna and Carla, like, can I have one more week because I'm busy editing my program note? And my program note sort of summarizes a little bit of this pretty succinctly, but I really thought about it. I say something in there along the lines of, you know, I'm writing this in camaraderie for all those who are working to find more of themselves through their art. And I think that's it for me, and if we even look at the title Indwell and the inner activating spirit force or principle, you know, I was really thinking about that to some extent with what we do in music. You know, we have these very extroverted practices of these very introverted, I mean, all of us, you know, juggle those two lives in what we do, right? Between the practice or the composition and then the sense of performance and the sense of our interactions with people. And I was really thinking and just working very much to really find, you know, that music and really work to just get what I heard onto the page. And to delve into that and to just really be very deeply in that place. And the two, I will throw this out there too, the two texts that I was particularly connecting to at the time, which everyone should read, Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art. It's big for what we do. But also Richard Bach, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Amazing things about transcending limits and really finding yourself and striving for what's important to you. So that's my sort of roundabout way to share.
Okay, I had a hard time describing because that's why I asked for time, but the time didn't help at all because I was so immersed with what they're responding, and so I didn't get to think anything about myself. But I think for this piece specifically, every piece will be very different. But for this piece, I kind of avoided I really did not want to be serious at all. So I was really trying. Let's try not to be, let's try to be the least serious possible. But then when I was listening to it today, I had those, so this is a premiere for me. So whenever I have premiere, I think about, I have all these self-criticism in my mind. Oh, that form. I mean, the performance was wonderful. Elizabeth did a wonderful job, but I'm always having trouble with the form. I can never figure out the form on the page or even with MIDI or anything. I have to hear it on the first performance and then realize, oh, this had to be shorter, this no, this so I make a lot of these things. And I don't know if this is the right question, but I think there's always a quest for me that my life as journey or whatever, and the music is always like separate. And then it gradually like merges together. And for this piece, I thought, okay, it's totally separate. But then when I was hearing, oh, okay, so that's very merged. I mean, not other people would not notice, but I realized. So I don't know, like this is not a question to your not answer to your question, but like I think I'm just struggling always, yeah. And by the way, I forgot to mention when I was talking about physicality, although like I tried myself and these things, like I'm always constantly learning, and even through today's performance, Elizabeth told me what works and what didn't, and I really appreciate it. Every time I write for someone, I feel like I'm getting a lesson, so I really appreciate it.
Beautiful. I think we have time for one more, and I think I saw Mary Kay Fink had a question.
I could ask Lisa this later, but I thought other people might want to know, what were the other titles that you were thinking of?
I don't exactly remember. I'd have to check my notes. Like, right? Like, it was one of those things that I was sort of living in this world and living in this world, and you sort of like, I think the composers in the room might be able to relate to this, like you're kind of bringing it in and kind of trying to go, is this it? Is this it? You know? And then when you kind of find it, it's like those other things fall away. So that's the funny thing, because I did read those notes like not that long ago, and I still don't quite remember. I do remember the word, this wasn't the title, but the word cardinal was really sticking with me. You know, the idea of a cardinal direction, that sort of guiding force, and also northern cardinals aren't that prominent where I live, at least not yet, but there's been one visiting me annually for the last 4 years. So I don't know, that was kind of striking me too. But there was something in that direction. So I don't have a very good answer. Well, since I have the microphone, I want to throw in something that I think is kind of fun. I hope this isn't totally selfish. But by the way, we met 20 years ago at a composers festival and haven't seen each other until today, though we've been on social media. We met last night in the elevator, and he's lucky I didn't grab the burger off of that plate because I was so starving.
I know. I love it.
But I love this about our circles and our community, and I want to take a minute to thank to the NFA, Leanna, Keith, Carla Rees. This commissioning program is amazing. We've got at least one previously commissioned composer out there, John Savage, who's incredible. Anyways, it's quite an honor to be here, and it's just such an honor to be next to you too.
Can I take the mic to say, since, I just want to say two things really quickly. Are composers, are there composers here? Yeah, this is great. Younger composers, you have to, this is something that's hugely important, you have to engage performers, okay, that play the actual instrument, okay? And you have to listen to them, okay? You may have creative ideas, better creative ideas, but they will always know how to play, or how to write for the instrument better than you. You know, Lina, just as of yesterday, says there are a couple things you may want to consider changing. That was a nice way of putting it. These are things you should change, you know. And I have to say, yes, ma'am, you know, and that will make the piece stronger. And so that's really, really important, because I wanted to kind of emphasize that. I don't want you to brush over that. To this day, I have my people that I call, and so that's that. And also, kind of piggyback to what you're saying, I always give two pieces of advice, unsolicited, that every time I give talks or master classes or whatever, the first is develop meaningful relationships, and you kind of talked about that. Art, I think, works best when you are working with people that you enjoy, that you can have relationships with. You meet people at conferences, you may not see them for 20 years, okay? But it's really important to develop meaningful relationships, especially as collaborators. You know, I work with Lina on a project, and then I have lots of flute friends, and then when they ask me for a flute person, that's like I had to call on Lina, you know? So that's really important. And secondly, be kind. This world is full of ugliness, and you can have your bad days. I'm not saying you have to be all happy all the time, but just be kind.
Okay, with that beautiful sentiment, we're going to wrap up this session. It was really wonderful to hear all of your thoughts. If you want to hear more about what the New Music Advisory Committee does and maybe you want to get involved, please come and talk to me. I'd love to talk to you about how we commission our composers every year, and maybe you want to help us. So thank you very much.